Hello YouTube, Tommy's Reptiles here, and in this video I will be giving you a tour of my reptile room and show you everything I've done so far. Here's the entrance into my reptile room. It's pretty cluttered because it still needs a lot of work, but I'm hoping I'll be done within the next 2 months. Here's a quick wraparound view of the room. This is my Gladiator shelf with most of my enclosures on it. This is a special project I'll tell you about in a little bit. And then here's the full wraparound view. And let's get a closer look at this special project one-of-a-kind enclosure that I designed myself and had built by Ed the Barn Door Maker. My couch is covered with stuff that I need to finish that enclosure, and here's my wall that needs more pictures. Here's my relaxation couch. Let's get a point of view of what I'm going to be seeing all the time. So what you're seeing here is my Gladiator shelving unit. I believe each shelf can hold up to 2,000 pounds. Before we dive into the reptiles and amphibians, I want to show you the Govee backlight that I set up. It's cool because you could set up whatever color you want, or you could customize your own color, and you could also use different settings like thunderstorms, candlelight, etc. It's real simple to control, as you can see. I'm using the app and I'm just cycling through some colors. I painted this room dark blue, so typically like purples and dark blues don't look too good on this light. But light blue actually looks good on this light, and so does white, and I'm going to show you my favorite one, which is the light green. So let's get into the reptiles. I'll be using my handy dandy snake hook as my pointer. Down to the bottom right, we have my poison dart frog enclosure. This enclosure houses 2 Dendrobates tinctorius, an Azurius and a green Sipilowini. And to the bottom left is an enclosure for my Brazilian rainbow boa. And above that is a 60-gallon breeder aquarium that houses my diamondback terrapin and African cichlids. And on the top right is an enclosure that houses my Quince Monitor. To the left of that is an enclosure that houses my juvenile frill dragons. Let's take a closer look at all of my enclosures. This is my small dart frog enclosure. Eventually, I'm going to be replacing it with a front opening enclosure to make it easier to do maintenance on. Surprisingly, one of my dart frogs actually came out while I was filming this. This is my Azurius. Currently, this is the only fully bioactive enclosure that I have, and I love having this enclosure. It's so easy to take care of these guys. All I really have to do is mist them down, feed them, and prune the plants. Next up, this is my Brazilian rainbow boa's enclosure. He is kept in a boa master. I plan on redoing his enclosure and making more climbs and hides. This is a DIY hide I made. I got some fake plants and some branches. I've had him in this enclosure for about 6 months, and I've only seen him out and about not hiding one time. Now I'll open up the other side to show you what it looks like. I have another hide on this side, more fake plants, fake flowers, and then that water dish to the left is where he's hiding most of the time. For the lighting in this enclosure, I'm using the Govee strip lights, just like the strip lights that I use for the back of the shelving unit. Brazilian rainbow boas don't really need a heat light. They just need one side of the enclosure to be pretty warm, the other side to be kind of room temperature, which is why I have hides on both the left and right side of the enclosure. Both hides are also stuffed with wet sphagnum moss to keep them humid. Here's my thermostat that's connected to a radiant heat panel on the right side of the enclosure. This is the warm side. It's a 99% chance he's going to be under this water dish. Well, what do you know? There he is. He just finished shedding, so his colors are really standing out. I got him when he was just a really small neonate, and I've been handling him every day, and since then he's been an amazing pet snake. He was really only nippy the first couple weeks that I had him. And he's a pretty good eater. He eats a small frozen thawed mouse every week or every other week, depending. He doesn't like to eat right before he sheds or after he sheds, so I usually give him a little bit of time. As he's growing, I'll slowly start to incorporate medium mice, then large mice, then rats. And eventually, I would like to upgrade him to a bigger size enclosure. I want it to be bigger horizontally so he has more room to explore on the ground, and also vertically so he has more room to climb. Part of the reason that I think I barely see him out and about is because he's nocturnal. So when I'm going to sleep, he's just waking up. Whenever I put him back in the enclosure, he usually goes to the back and just burrows under some of the substrate. And then once after I leave, he sneaks back under the water dish. So let's put back his favorite hiding spot and get on to the next reptile on this reptile shelf. Above this enclosure is my 60-gallon breeder fish/turtle tank. This tank houses a wide variety of fish, but mostly assorted African cichlids, and a northern diamondback terrapin. Let's feed them and get a feeding frenzy going. Sometimes my fish eat some of the turtle food, sometimes my turtle eats some of the fish food, whatever. When I feed my fish, my turtle can usually sense that there's food in the water, and then he gets curious. I usually feed my African cichlids fish flakes, bloodworms, or fish pellets. The main staple of my turtle's diet is turtle pellets, but I also feed him things like shrimp and insects. The awesome thing about housing turtles and fish together is that turtles are very messy eaters, and the fish help clean it up. I also have turtles and other reptiles that I keep outside and in my garage, but for this video, I'm just showing you what I have in this room right now. Since I live in Florida, I have the luxury of being able to keep reptiles inside and outside. Diamondback terrapins are by far my favorite turtles. They always seem to have such a funny and spunky personality, and they just look totally awesome. I mean, look at this turtle. He can barely keep any of the food inside of his mouth. Good thing the fish are helping out. Next enclosure on the list is above this to the top right. This enclosure is 4 feet long, 2 feet high, and houses my Quince Monitor. This setup is pretty basic for now, but in the future I plan to make it way better. He usually hides in one of these rock caves. Here he is. He's not too happy because I woke him up for this video, but normally he's pretty docile. As you can see, he has a prehensile tail. I like Quince Monitors the best because they're a full package. They're semi-aquatic, they're arboreal, and they're also terrestrial, which is why I think they're a totally awesome monitor. I also love their yellow and black coloration. But I can tell he's pretty mad, so I'll show you the other side of this enclosure, which is mainly just his water feature, which is a small fish tank. He actually spends a lot of time just laying underwater. And the last enclosure on this shelf is what I call the Frill Dragon Nursery. Right now, it's currently housing one of my juvenile frill dragons, but in the future, it will only house baby frill dragons. Woo! I love this enclosure because I got it with a wraparound background that is a picture of the Australian outback. This frill dragon will soon be upgraded to a much bigger enclosure. She's very feisty, so I'm not going to pick her up for too long, but I just wanted to show you her brilliant orange coloration. So that's it for my reptile shelf, but I still have a couple things that I want to show you guys that I will be working on in the near future. This large enclosure is called the Lizard Lounge. I designed it and Ed the Barn Door Maker made it. This is a multifunctional reptile enclosure, bar, and shelf. And it's on wheels. As you can see, it's not finished yet, but I'll give you guys a closer look. Look at that beautiful countertop. I sealed the inside of this with 2 coats of dry lock, and above that is the 2 spaces for the UVB and heat bulbs. These enclosures will be housing all of my adult frill dragons, and right there you can see where I'm going to put the vent. And I'll give you a look at the other side of this enclosure, which is identical to the right side. I'll be making an awesome YouTube video showcasing how I escaped these bad boys. And lastly, on top of the Lizard Lounge countertop is a leap habitat. This will eventually be housing the 2 dart frogs that you saw earlier in this video. And some other frogs will be going in that enclosure on the bottom shelf. Leap habitats are really awesome. It's unbelievable how light they are. They're definitely one of my favorite enclosure companies, and I plan on getting many more from them in the future. I hope you like this reptile room tour. Thank you for watching Tommy's Reptiles.